this demonstration, I'm just going to show you some of the basic ways to do simple math with Python. Now, I could just add 5 plus 3 and get a total, but instead I first put them into variables, 5 into the num of apples and 3 into num of pears. And then over here I can just add them together using the variable names. Anytime variable names are used in a formula, of course, they are first converted to the values stored in the variable, and then the addition operation is done. So 5 plus 3 equals 8. Total fruit is 8. And then we have a print statement that prints out total fruit. And notice that even though total fruit is a number, I didn't have to upgrade it to be a string with the string function because it's in a print statement that's separated by commas. I'm not appending the two strings together using a plus sign. So this is a little give me, it's a little freebie that print with commas gives you. You don't have to specifically convert it to be a string before displaying it. It'll automatically display as a string. Also notice in the print statement, I have two \n's, and that means new line. So it'll skip two lines before it prints this information. It can make it a little bit easier to read on the display. So let's go ahead and run this. And there we are. I run this earlier, so this was a second run. Total fruits are 8. So yeah, that works good. And let's move on. I've taken the code that we just saw with addition, and this time I put an input there for how many apples you have. And remember, we have this problem. Everything comes back as a string, so this should fail. Notice I've got this line commented out with the pound sign. So if I run, it should fail. I should put something in there, and I say I have 5, and it says, no, you can't do that because you're trying to add a string to a number, an int and a string, so it's not going to work. So the way around that is I'm going to uncomment this line. And one thing I want to show you here that's a little bit different than what we did before is I'm not making another special variable name. Last time I made something like num of apples int. Here I'm just taking the num of apples that's there that is a string that has a number in it, and I convert it to an integer, and then it overrides what was there before. So now, after this line runs, num of apples is now a true number, and I didn't change the name. I clobbered the original one that was a string, so I have to remember that if I wanted to use it as a string, but I don't in this case. So this should run. Let's go ahead and give it a whirl. So I'll put that on there. I'll put run module, and we'll say 5, and total fruits are 8, because 5 plus 3 is still 8. Okay, moving on with some different code. This is subtraction. The number of apples is 7, and I'm going to just literally subtract 3. I could have put it into a variable 3, but you don't have to. You can mix variables and just literal numbers and do the math still works. So we should end up with 4 total apples, and let's run it and see if the math is right. And it says total apples are 4, so that's good. Now I have an example I put in here where we're going to do multiplication. Now, if you've never programmed in a programming language before, you may find it surprising that the multiplication symbol is not a little x the way we do when we write out math. On a computer, you use the asterisk. Okay, so it's an asterisk is the symbol we use to be recognized as multiplication. You put a little x there and it won't work. You'll probably get an error. So I've given you 7 apples here, and I'm saying I want to see the number of apples times 3. So it should be 21, and let's run it and see if that does indeed work. And there it is, total apples are 21. So again, if you've never programmed before in a programming language, this might be a surprise to you, but little x does not work. You have to use an asterisk for multiplication. Now I've brought in a division example. So I have number of apples is 21, and I'm going to divide it by 3. A forward slash for division, that's fairly common when you write things out in a straight line. That is used for division. You may have seen when you print, you have a little dot and a hyphen and a dot below it and all that, but we're not using that symbol. Just a simple forward slash will indicate division. So 21 divided by 3 should give us 7, and we should see 7 when we run this. So we'll run it, and with total apples are 7. Now, why did it do 7.0? Let's take a quick look at that. In Python, the / acts as division, but it is a rule that it always treats the things being divided as floating point. So num of apples is seen as 21.0, and this 3 is seen as 3.0. And so total apples will be expressed as a floating point number. That's the way it always works, just using the / for division. There's other rules and more complicated ways to do it if you don't want that to happen, but this is just in basic math, and it's usually not a problem. So we're just going to use the / and I'm going to just show you that for now. So bringing in another example, last time my division was clean. I did 3 into 21, but what if I do 5 into 21? That's not going to go evenly. And so let's see what happens. What do we get when we do that? So I run the module, and again, it expresses it in floating point fashion, so it handles it. It says num of apples is 21.0, 5 is 5.0. When you divide them, you get 4.2. So it's expressed as a floating point number. That's the way you'd expect. But if you'd like to see remainders instead, there's another way to do this. Let me show you. I brought in another formula here, and instead of a division symbol here, we use a percent symbol. Now, we're not getting the percent of anything. This is known as a modulo operator. That's hard to say. But anyway, what it basically does is it performs the division operation, but puts the remainder in the variable. In this case, I called it total apples left. So num of apples divided by 7, well, let's change this. Let's change that number to 16, so it's uneven. So divided by 7 would be 2 with 2 remainder, is what you'd expect. So let's go ahead and see if this works out for us. Run it, and it says total apples left is 2. So if I change that and I put a different number like 17 there, we should get a different answer. And we do. Total apples left is 3. So that's your remainder. So if you need that for some reason, and you just may, that's the way you do it, with a percent sign as the modulo operator. So here I'm going to show you the rounding operation. So I'm just going to do this simply. We're using x equals the beginning part of pi, 3.14159. So if I just want to round that to its nearest integer, I just use the word round, the function. So I'm rounding x. X holds the pi in there, so I call that variable Rx. If I wanted to go to 2 places, I wanted to see 3.14, I would do round x comma 2 to 2 places. If I want to see 3 places, it's x comma 3 within the round function. And then I print all 3 results to a whole number, to 2 places, to 3 places. So let's see what that looks like. And drum roll, please. We got 3. We have 3.14, 3.142. So the rounding operation works well. So remember that. You're probably going to need to use that at some point here in the class. In mathematics here, we have the concept of order of precedence. So the way it works in arithmetic here like that is division, or you go left to right, but multiplication and division are given priorities over addition and subtraction. So it's not left to right here. The way this is processed is it first looks at and says, oh, give me 3 times 4, which is 12, and then add that to 2, which would be 14. So let's see what if that works, if the precedence is being followed correctly. And it is. So the total of 2 plus 3 times 4 is 14. Now, to get around that, we just use parentheses to force the order. So we put parentheses around the 2 plus 3, so it does that operation first before doing anything else. So 2 plus 3 is 5, and then 5 times 4 is 20. So we'll see what we get here. I run it. Oops, I gotta save it. And it says 20. 2 plus 3 times 4 is 20. So all is good in the world of math. Obviously, mathematics can get way more complicated than this, but these are the basic things you're going to need to do, basic math in Python. So I think we'll just wrap it up there, and any higher level math we're going to need in the class, I'll introduce the concept before you need it. And we'll end with that.